Book's a good one. The difficult thing in our industry is like a lot of the product stuff, they're kind of new. You just saw it happening. You don't know exactly how it worked, but you want to repeat it, then it becomes more difficult.
And my experience is that when I came back in 2010, I never went back to Canada because there was suddenly a new thriving scene of startups, and everybody started offering me jobs, which which was something that I started. Okay, maybe I should stay here.
Hello and welcome to Products Brazilian Way, the third season of Product Chronicles. I'm Joca Torres from Jaco.
And I'm Fabio Duarte, fractional CPO, and we're co-hosts for this new season where we dive into the experiences of Brazilian professionals who have built products outside Brazil.
This season was born from a simple but powerful insight. Despite the differences in language, culture, or digital maturity, many of the core challenges in product work are universal. For instance, like how we create real impact through product, how to align technology with strategy, and how to earn the trust to operate with autonomy.
Yeah, and in each episode, we'll talk to interesting, exciting Brazilian product people who worked abroad. And you explore what changes and what doesn't when building products beyond Brazil and make sure that we understand the Brazilian way of making products.
And so let's get started. Today, our guest is a good friend, a friend from old time, Paulo Caroli. He worked for ThoughtWorks for many, many years and lived in, currently he lives in Madrid in Spain and lived in many other places. He will tell a little bit about his history and we are very happy to have you here, Paulo.
Hey, Joca. Hey, Fabio. I'm glad to be here. It's my pleasure joining those Brazilians.
So let's talk about the Brazilian way. And starting from the beginning, how did your journey into product management begin? And how did the path take you to outside Brazil?
Well, my journey, long time ago, back on the days, 1997, 1998, I was doing my master's degree in PUC Rio, and I used to travel to US for the UPSLA conference, and then I found a job in Silicon Valley. In 1999, I finished my master thesis, and then I went to work for a startup. And from there, I worked it was 7 startups in 6 years, and mainly as a developer. You know, well, as some of those were really startups, one of them I was the second person, the founder and me. You played more than one role, for sure, like any other startup. And then in 2006, I joined ThoughtWorks, and I was with ThoughtWorks from 2006 until 2024, 18 years. And then with ThoughtWorks, I was really involved on agile methodology, uh, coach, scrum master, PO, and then I gravitate a little closer to the product side of things. And especially with Leanception, the book I released in 2016, then I became, I don't call myself a product guy, but a really good friend of product strategists and product managers as a whole. And I've been on several different organizations helping products being built.
So, what countries were there, Paulo? You started in the US, right? The first foreign country that went to.
US, Silicon Valley for many years. Then I moved to Miami, on the other side of the coast. Then back to California, and then from California all the way to India, where I stayed for 2 years and a half. And then from India, living, right? Because from India, for example, I worked a lot with UK, but then from India I moved to Brazil. when I took ThoughtWorks to Brazil and also helped start Agile Brazil. In Brazil, we, besides helping the Brazilian companies, we help a lot with Ecuador and Chile and Peru. And then because of that, I started working quite a bit on Spanish. And then I got a liking for working in Spanish. And then I ended up moving to Spain in 2019. While in Spain, work with Spanish organizations as well as German and UK based.
Really nice. And what motivated you to move abroad? And did you have any fears and any uncertainties at the time?
Good question, Joca. No fears, and well, it all starts with Silicon Valley. As a young Brazilian in IT, back on the days, right, 99, 2000, almost every single organization I knew, Portland, Microsoft, everybody, Google, everybody was on Silicon Valley. Then I decided, okay, I'll move there. It's California, like good technology, good city, good food, good people, and but from there, I think, especially with ThoughtWorks, I had options. And then India was a good move for me because of personal life. I was into yoga, and I wanted to. A lot of people go to India to do yoga for a few months, and then the person I was following was from Mysore, which is right next to Bangalore, and the larger office. Bangalore is a huge IT center. Then I decided I'm going to live there and be very close to the person that created Astanga Yoga. Her daughter, their family is from Bangalore and Mysore. That's why I said, okay, I'll stay here and be very close to that family. So work and life balance. But this was back on the days that from US, everybody was doing offshore to India. And I want to experience, later we called agile at scale, product at scale. But back then was just like super huge projects or program of work, very complex, continuous delivery, 20 teams committing on the same source code, things that as a developer or as a product person used to be, oh, we all should commit to the same source code and maintain, the same trunk. And I want to experience it in India as well. Like, okay, let's see how far it can go. So India was a really good experience. Then Brazil, because I missed Brazil. To be honest, like I missed my family, I missed Brazil. Brazil was in some golden years, back in 2010, and it was nice to work with Brazilians again because living abroad, I work with so many different people, and I am Brazilian myself, and I like work with Brazilians. Brazilians have a different way of work, and then I was like, okay, time to go back home and stay there for a while. But then,
Actually, I went back to Brazil also in 2010
ah,
after leaving for Canada 2007. And my experience is that when I came back in 2010, I never went back to Canada because there was suddenly a new thriving scene of startups, and everybody started offering me jobs, which which was something that I started. Okay, maybe I should stay here. So how was that experience? Did you see the same thing or?
yeah, in 2010, 11, 12, 13, those are like the golden years. To be honest, like when I moved to US, Silicon Valley, I moved in 2000 and it was amazing. And then 2001 was bad. There was the collapse on Silicon Valley. It was not fun years, but I was like, I like California, I want to stay there. And after a few years, things were fine again. But in 2008, when things were bad, I was in India, and India didn't have a down, didn't go down as bad as US or Europe was going. And after that experience, I realized when I live in a country or organization, I want to be in one that's going up, not going down. And then I moved to Brazil, which was going up until, you know, 2015, 16, things started going bad. I was like, I need to move again. But Brazil in those golden years was things were just amazing. And the Brazilian people are very creative. It was really nice to see the whole product community, agile community, everybody exchanging information and doing stuff together. Like Lean Sapper was born on that environment, right?
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
was.
I remember those days we were experiencing initially with agile methodologies. We even brought some people to train us. I was at Local Web at the time, and after that we started to play also with product management. We even brought Marty Kagan for the first time to Brazil, and he got amazed to see the tech scene in Brazil at the time. He couldn't imagine that we have so many companies interested in technology. And I remember we were the first invoice of ThoughtWorks in Brazil.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
we were the very first client. And you mentioned the difference working with Brazilians and working with people from other cultures. Can you dive deeper into that? What are the main difference you see and you missed and made you come back to Brazil?
Well, first, I want to be careful with generalization, because
Yeah.
in any country, any place, you have all kinds of people. But generalizing, right? So, well, a simple example: when the meeting start, okay, in Brazil, the meeting start. The beginning of the meeting is chit-chatting. You got to talk to people. Hey, how are you doing? How's the weather? How's the food? How's the family? If you don't do this on the beginning, it's weird. It's impolite. When I'm facilitating a meeting in German, like you got to be there like 1 minute before, and before the meeting starts, everybody's on the meeting. And that's it. Be very straight to the point. Like their culture. There are a lot of culture difference, and in fact, like from US to India to Brazil to Germany. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons that I became a good facilitator, because as a Brazilian in US, you're still a little different. So you gotta pay attention on how you maneuver yourself, how you facilitate a meeting, how do you conduct a meeting, and then when you go to India, it's totally different, And then when you work with an international company like ThoughtWorks, that in every single office, 30% of the people are not from that country, you get familiar with the differences, And I think naturally you acquired some extra skills for facilitation, not to do stuff that can be unpolite in some context.
Now the fun begins. Paulo, so would you go into specifics? Okay, what are the things that you need to take care of when you're facilitating in the U.S. and what was so different in India afterwards?
Well, one thing that you have to have in mind to become to all the places is create a safe environment. And the safe environment in Brazil is not the same as in the US, not the same in India. That's the first thing, but it's very difficult because one thing that feels very safe for you in Brazil might be the opposite in other place. For
Like
example,
what?
in Brazil, we're big hug people. We hug. We shake hands. We kiss on the cheeks. Like you do in Italy. In US, no. In India, no. Like in India, no way. It would be like, wow, it's too much. I'll give you another example, one that's easier. It has to do with language. I have one activity which I even have in Final Retrospect, which I like a lot, is the defining the nirvana. I lived in India for a few years. I like India, nirvana. For me, was always like nirvana, And then one activity, instead of saying North Star and this kind of stuff, I got together with a group of people, let's define the nirvana. And once I was running this in Germany, and nirvana is a word in English that you might imagine that for everybody means nirvana, no? And coming from yoga, nirvana is nirvana. And once I run this activity in Germany, and people like, hey, someone that had that knew me before, like, Caroli, nirvana, no. I'm like, what do you mean? In German, nirvana means the the place for the dead people. It's not seen as the nirvana, you know. It's like, yeah, you go to nirvana once you're dead, you know. So define the nirvana was not like a good experience. You as a team want to define the team nirvana, you know. It's such a subtle thing that I have no clue for years, you know, facilitating. And
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's really a
yeah,
tough one.
that I learned that day. But like that one, there are several nuances that catch us.
And do you think your Brazilian background somehow helped you or hinder in those work environments? In which ways?
It it sure did, you know. Uh, as a Brazilian, it's hard to generalize again, but we're not afraid of making mistakes. For example, when speaking, we make mistakes. Speaking in English, I make until today. In Spanish, when I start speaking Spanish, was like a disaster, you know. But with that usually doesn't stop us. I'm talking about myself and several other colleagues that I had traveling with me from Brazil to Chile, and they're like, "Yeah, I speak Spanish." You go there, like, no, they don't speak Spanish, but they communicate. So we have a tendency to figure out a way to communicate. Can be good, that can be bad, you know. That can be good, that it won't stop you. You're going to go there, you use the other 80% of the communication as well as you can, you know. It can go bad for someone that's very literal on the language. That's like, whoa, well, what's going on here? I'm not getting the hand movement and all those things, you know. It can go bad back on the days without ChatGPT, without all the automatic translation. When you send a message, you would write short emails. That's what I would do. My English was not perfect, so you write short emails. But for the person receiving it, sometimes it looks like you're unpolite. You know, you're too straight to the point, you know, which was not our intention, but that's how it come across, the communication.
There's an interesting thing about that in the other way around. You know, a lot of times I would be trying to translate things in Portuguese to English. You know, maybe a CEO would, oh, Fabio, help me translate this, and I would cut, I don't know, roughly 80% of the content, and I would say an American would never write all this. Like those two sentences, they are the email. All the rest is useless. And he was like, oh no, it's very impolite. No, I just cut the fluff, and it was very hard, you know, for him to understand. Like, yeah, people communicate in such a different way, and I was, it's pretty hard to transmit that. And also there's an explainer for the people watching this podcast, is that Portuguese and Spanish are not the same language, and some people would be surprised to know how different they might be. When you read both languages, they're almost the same. When you speak it, it's completely different. So, yeah, may happen that Brazilians think that they speak Spanish and they will be
Yeah.
speaking something that's neither
It,
Portuguese nor Spanish. Yeah.
yeah, it's Galego from Galicia, you know, between Portugal and Spain. Well, in Spain side, but like right next to Portugal.
But I'm a self-critic a lot. I mean, I'm not like you. I'm very concerned if I'm speaking correctly, and I take English classes until today. I had one today to be able to maintain my English in a good level. And I completely understand that I don't speak Spanish at all, not even a Portuñol. And I know I know this by fact. I'm not that outgoing as you. So even within the same country or group of people, there are differences.
Yeah.
This is something very important for us to note. We are talking about cultures and about countries, but within a country, within a group of people, within a team, a product development team with engineers and designers and product managers, they are different. They have different backgrounds. We need to understand that. But Brazilians have a very unique approach to everything. So let me ask you, in terms of understanding the user problem or understanding the business, Are there any differences in approach? I mean, you run workshops of lean inception that helped you go deeper into local understanding of the user, local understanding of the business objectives. Do you see any difference in approaches among different people from different countries?
I do. I'll give you a few examples. Maybe Brazil and US. In Brazil, when I run a workshop, it doesn't matter the person is a developer, product manager, everybody's speaking up and talking about, the product side, the design side. Like we're less respectful of the roles. We have less boundaries between roles. In US, it is a little more clear the boundary of the role. Like, oh no, you're the product person, and everybody stares at the product person. What do you think about this product strategy? And designs with Jane. Jane, what do you think about product design? This is in US per role. When you go to India, it's more per hierarchy. Like, doesn't matter, is the designer the product person who is more senior in the hierarchy, and then people who look more in the seniority. In Brazil, neither. That's my experience in Brazil. Like, it's not that we're not respectful, but like the trainee might ask a question to the CEO in the meeting, like, "Hey, sorry, I didn't understand it," and it's much more acceptable in Brazil this than if you are in a corporation US. I wouldn't see it a trainee just raise their hands and make a question, unless very invited. From the CEO being very open, like, okay, we want to hear everybody. In Brazil, you don't need to ask it. You just make a open statement, and the trainee is going to ask.
And from your Brazilian background, how did you react in that scenario? Did you incentivize the QA person or the developer to speak out loud their ideas? How was the experience?
You have to be aware of those differences. I'll share an example that I used a lot on retrospectives. I used to facilitate a lot of retrospectives, and you want to get the most of the retrospectives, despite if the person from India, Germany, US. So one trick you have is like, okay, please write it down in a post-it, and then everybody's able to write it down. And then after that, don't even ask people to put on the wall, because they'll put on the wall, they'll be quiet. And then the person that's more outgoing will start clustering as per her desire. So instead of this, please write it down. Then people write it down. And then you ask, who has something to say? One person's going to say something. And then you go there and you grab the post-it. And then ask, who has something very similar to this? This makes it much easier for anyone, despite of the role, the hierarchy, to participate. Even if a very shy person, just raise the hand, me, and then you cluster, and then the person wants to listen too. So those are the few tricks to create a safe environment, despite of, are you shy, not shy, more quiet, less quiet, more junior, more senior. You have to pay attention how to create those environments. I think I got this over the years. Work with people from different countries and different backgrounds, trying to make them collaborate.
What's the toughest situation that you ever faced regarding that?
Hierarchy. Sometimes you go as a facilitator and you want to bring collaboration, create a safe environment, and then someone from a very high hierarchy tells you, no, that's not like this, I'm going to handle it. And then you have to make a quick decision. Do I respect this person because I'm in this context that's very hierarchical? Or do I say no because I don't know if that person is hurting who is in less hierarchy? It's not hurting me as a facilitator, but like, what do you do? Or similar thing between different male and female, or caste in India. Like when you feel there is something there, do you act or you don't act? In fact, when in India, I read the Bhagavad Gita, their book on the Hinduism, and it has an amazing thing there, which is to act or not to act. And sometimes very difficult because sometimes to act is the wrong thing and not to act is the wrong thing. And but you got to make a decision. That decision is not only on you; it's in you and the context. You know. In Brazil, yes, act. In other cultures, I don't know if you should act. Because sometimes you act and then you make it worse for the person that was in a not safe environment because you're making it visible that was not safe. So I've been in a few situations like that, and it's a hard one. But whatever happened the moment, as soon as you have a break, you go to the person that you're in doubt if the person was feeling safe or not, and you say, hey, it was my impression this happened. How are you? Is my impression correct or not? But bring on you. It was my impression. Don't say I saw this happening. No, it was my impression. Is that okay? If it was just your impression, the person gonna, or if the person doesn't want to talk about it, they say no, all good, leave it like that. If the person felt something, they might tell you, look, I felt like this. If they feel like I felt like this and I wish you had done something, they will tell you, and you still have time to do it because you did this on the break. Don't take it home with you. Try to handle it soon after.
Almost like a therapist.
Yeah, it's
that's tough job.
If you want to be a facilitator and collaborate, a great collaborator, inceptions, discoveries, and the strategic, workshops, guess what? You got to pay attention. The hard thing is easy. The soft thing is the hard one.
But would you say that leaders should be exactly the same, or do you see like a leadership position very different from this, like creating a safe environment and making more sure that it's safe rather than people are, I don't know, obeying and doing what they should?
It depends on the leadership style. Like whenever you have a leader or a director or CEO of a great organization, there is a reason that person is there. So that person has some very strong skills. Not necessarily the skills are from the servant leadership, this kind of stuff. They're going to have amazing skills. You have to counterbalance those skills to make sure the other people are fine. I don't want to give example of bad leaders that are super successful. I don't want to name people here. But we know in our industry, like some leaders that are super successful on the business side, but they're not, I would say, great people from what I consider to be a good person. Therefore, I don't consider them good leaders.
Do you think that hurts the company, or maybe the companies will thrive regardless? Because that's a big question I believe every company faces.
Depends on what the company measure. If the company only measure revenue, this question doesn't even exist. If the company measures revenue and well-being, that question makes sense. Unfortunately, not all companies measure well-being, for example.
And do you see a difference, Paulo, in how companies measure success in Brazil and abroad, in the companies you worked with, the different countries? Are there any difference, or is it more or less?
It's such a hard question. Like, I know we are very caring as Brazilians, but that doesn't say much because it's more than being caring or not. If you're in an economy that's very rich, you have extra cash to decide, okay, now I want to be super caring of my people. And if you're in an economy that's very poor, like you got to be very revenue efficient, you might not have space to have the external things to make sure you have a safe environment, So those things
Especially
have to
if
be
people are afraid
in
of, sorry, but I was just going to say that if people are afraid of losing their jobs, the environment would tend to be less safe, maybe.
Exactly. And if you are in a current economic context of our industry where a lot of people are losing their job, it won't be that easy for you to find another job. That's when you stay a little more quiet.
And to that, I'm curious about India, because India people try to put in the same basket as Brazil, even the BRICS,
No,
you know,
oof,
Brazil, Russia, India, and China. They are completely, all of the four are completely
completely. Yeah,
different.
exactly. The BRICS are totally different. Every
Yeah,
single letter: Russia,
yeah,
Brazil, India, South Africa,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
totally
But
different.
what did you find more different in India in the way that people develop products and collaborate to bring products to
And
life,
it's
discover products and to bring products to life? And if are there any similarities? Oh, this is very similar to the way that Brazilians do. What are the main
well.
differences and similarities?
I'll talk about my experience in India. Right, first number of people. You have
Mm,
more people in every single role in the team, everything. Uh, it's cheaper, you know, to hire more people there, so you have in numbers. Then, because they're very hierarchical, if you have one manager to 10 people, it's one thing. If you have one manager to 10 people in Brazil, it's another thing. You know, the amount of work it gives to the manager. If a manager in India say, let's all move north, he and the 10 people will move north. If a manager in Brazil say, let's all move north, 10 people will be asking, hey, why north? Why not northeast? Why not south? Wait a second. What about this? What about that? So it's a different level of work that you have to do as a and management style. You know, in India, I think it's a little, I would say, easier to maneuver a lot of people in the same direction because of the hierarchy. As long as you're the manager, they respect you for that. You know, they're gonna say yes or won't disagree for that. In Brazil, it's different, and then culture is totally different. You know, in India, for you to get a clear no or to hear the person's opinion, it's not that you got to create a safe environment. You got to create a safe environment and make the question from 5 different angles to get the answer you want. So you got to be more creative as well if you really want to get your team feedback. You know, in Brazil, you need less creative on that. And the same goes for user research and everything when you think about product. You know, in Brazil, you do a user research in the streets in São Paulo, easy. Every 2 people you stop to ask, other 5 is gonna come to talk to you. So it'll be easier, you know.
And if
Nice.
people don't have any opinion, they tend to invent
Oh,
one,
yeah.
on the fly. So they can feel useful to you, right?
It's like ChatGPT. They never, they will ever have an answer for you. Brazilians created this GPT.
There is a
We
very
trained
Brazilian
it.
thing, at least in Rio de Janeiro, that if you ask somebody in the street like, oh, how do I get to that place? It's pretty common that even people that have no idea where that place is, they'll try to teach you, and it is something that I'll forever find very funny. When I see tourists
Yeah.
like, and you see by the body expression that the person tried to guide the tourist, she has no clue. There is no clue. They don't know where exactly they should go, but they're still, yeah, you turn left here, and it's a very Brazilian
Uh,
way of doing things. People want to be useful.
and more than Brazilian, there's something about Rio de Janeiro. No, people in ThoughtWorks in
I would
Brazil,
say
they would always make fun of me about the word in Portuguese is malemolência. They would say,
Malemolência.
how is this word in English, Fabio? Mal-
Ah,
I, I,
it's
I never found a word
it's
for this.
something like street
The,
smart, but
yeah,
not
but
quite.
not on
It's
the diminishing way, right? It's
yeah.
it's kind of street smart. That's very carioca. It has to do with the beach. Don't know. I don't know what it is. But
Gemini from Google is giving something like swing, sway,
Swing, sway, and that's more with the
smoothness,
movement. Yeah.
yeah,
sleekness.
it,
It often refers to the characteristics of fluid movement of samba dancers, but it can also describe a general state of relaxed, flowing movement, or even a kind of languid grace.
yeah.
There you go. So turns
I,
out people were more interested
oh,
in being
thank you.
friendly than actually being useful, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It, Cariocas are like this a little bit. They always want to be smiling, happy, friendly.
So what do you do when you're in such a different environment? You know, we go to India and people are highly hierarchical, and talking about product specifically, we're not leaders usually, right? But we have a lot of things that we need other teams to accept. And what do you do in those environments? You know, how do you do discovery? How do you make people respect, you know, the discovery process and understand that you might have the answers and not the boss?
You gotta come with the books, you know, the political thing. Hey, what about this? Take a look at this. I think this would be good for us. You know, you gotta do other kinds of maneuvers. You know, referrals. I did this before when I worked with this company for UK. It worked well. Can I share with you? You know, you find indirect ways to persuade or to convince the person. You know, books are a good one. The difficult thing in our industry is like a lot of the product stuff. They're kind of new. You just saw it happening. You don't know exactly how it worked, but you want to repeat it. Then becomes more difficult. In environments like India, where they're used to show me the book, what's your hierarchy, you know. But what would help me as well while being in there, because I came from Silicon Valley, so you get a little, you know, discount. Oh, he came from Silicon Valley, let's listen to him. And I'm Brazilian, and because you're Brazilian, you're not from India, they accept that you maneuver yourself a little different in the hierarchy. Like you look different, so this gives you
Gives
a
you
little,
different tension.
yeah, you know. That's the thing about living abroad, because you don't have the perfect English. It's bad from one side, it's forgiving from another side, which might sometimes it's easier for us.
I sometimes say that, you know, like speaking with an accent provides extra metadata that might be pretty useful for the listener. You know, it says a lot without saying anything,
Yeah.
and that's why this podcast will, even though Joca is still, you know, learning and studying English, I hope you never lose your accent, Joca, because
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. But changing direction a little bit. When you now I believe you are, or I don't know, maybe you were always connected to the Brazilian product community. But how did you stay connected to the Brazilian product community, product development community, when living abroad? Did you came here frequently, or what did you do?
Well, when I lived abroad in 2000, I was not that connected. I left Brazil. I'm like, okay, let me live here. I'm California now. Let me stay here. Uh, but when I think I was in, then I moved to India. Okay, and then in India, it's like, oh, I came from Silicon Valley, but I'm Brazilian, right? And then once I was in China, and talk about India is a lot of people, right? But I went to China and was 2008, and there was a small event in China. It was the first year. They said, hey, we're going to create a small event. We're going to call it Agile China. And Paulo, do you want to go there and speak? And I said, yeah, I'll go there and speak. And then I spoke right after Martin Fowler, because they had one auditorium for people that spoke English and another one for people that would speak Chinese. And in the auditorium was like 1,000 people. You know, and I was talking about XP back then, and people were like, "Wow, this is amazing!" And Chinese taking pictures, you know, like and I felt a little bad because I was living abroad of Brazil like for almost 9 years, and I haven't shared anything with Brazil. You know, then I felt that night I went to the hotel and got the domain agilebrazil.com and decided, guess what? I have some knowledge I want to share with Brazil. So my connection with the product community came from the agile side, because for me agile is like, um, you know me from Leanception. I was always like trying to get from project to product, you know. But I was known in the agile community, so that was my entry into the Brazilian community to pay my debt with Brazil, bringing knowledge home, and also trying to connect everybody within the same community. You know, instead of being very, oh, this is agile, the rest is not.
and you have all your books behind you there. the books that you wrote for the community?
Yeah, in order. The first one was, which is not here, I need to get it in Brazil, the Anthology of ThoughtWorks Brazil, which I felt like we had this in English, and I felt like, hey, there's so many cool things happening here in Brazil. That was the first time that I stopped to write a book or help publish a book. I want to share what we are doing in Brazil with the world, especially in ThoughtWorks, for them to know there are good things coming from Brazil, which was in Portuguese. And then from there, Leanception, which was shared first in Portuguese, then English. And then the next one was Fun Retrospectives. I already had the website, a lot of people using, and then that was English, then Portuguese. And then Product Backlog Building, along with Fabio Aguiar. Fabio's from Belém. And I said, this what he's doing is amazing. I want to make sure we have this. So Portuguese.
Belém's in the Amazon forest for the people.
Oh, it's amazing, amazing place. Then I want to have it in Portuguese and in English, right? And then Sprint by Sprint was a story. Me and Mari, we work on the same team, and we help the team and facing the pain that many teams face. So that one I want to share, especially in Portuguese in Brazil, because I thought we were facing a common pain that every single team trying to do good product management were facing back in the time. And from there, cumulative flow diagram, because that blog post and article was way too long and I wouldn't write a whole book on it, so I just got a short book. And now Team OKR, my things on collaboration, helping connect strategy with what the teams are doing. And then Team OKR is the latest one. But that one, first in English, now Portuguese and Spanish. And I always have the challenge between those three languages,
And you are about to launch the Brazilian Portuguese version, right?
Yes, in August. If I'm not mistaken, yeah. But that one I decided first in English. And in fact, it's difficult to evolve a book in three languages at the same time. It's impossible because as you're evolving the book, you change a lot. So I choose one language and stay on it for a few years. Once I consider it's good enough, I publish in that language. But as soon as I translate to another language, I go back and improve the original one, So this just happened with Team OKR in English. As I translated to Portuguese, I saw some improvements which I did bring it back to the book in English.
And prior to our quick fire round, we have a quick fire round here, but prior to our quick fire round, any lesson or mindset shift that you gain from your international experience that you wish more Brazilian people, more Brazilian product teams would adopt?
Well, a final tip is be open to different experience, not talking only about culture. Be open to be with different people in different places and different cultures, and enjoy the ride. Instead of saying, "Oh, I don't fit here," or "Oh, I'm different." Forget this. Just go with open heart, learn, and enjoy, because life is long and we'll be learning a lot from each other. Not only from your neighbors or from the people you grew up with.
Okay, so now we are in our quick fire round. Some quick questions. Just say the first things that comes to your mind. Brazilian food you miss the most?
Picanha, barbecue. Well, I don't miss the most because I can find it here in Spain, but barbecue every weekend.
You don't have that in India, right?
No, in India I was vegetarian.
Oh, okay. That's convenient.
You gotta adapt to the culture always.
Or people would kick you out of the country, maybe. Yeah.
That's perfect. One Brazilian habit you've kept during your time abroad?
One Brazilian
habit.
Wow. Well, calling my father. That's it's kind of a habit to call him every week. You know,
Nice. Here's another one. That's a good one. The biggest misconception about Brazilians in technology.
about Brazilian technology, that we know how to play soccer and samba. Sorry, because I don't play soccer, neither dance samba. So that's it's not only in technology that's in life. Sorry, I couldn't resist it because
Yeah.
as soon
Me
as you
too. Me
tell you're
too.
Brazilian, they assume you play soccer really well or dance samba.
Me too. Me too. Even like soccer. I don't like soccer that much. I only watch World Cup matches. So
We're so not
anyway.
Brazilians.
Yeah. So something from the Brazilian work culture you think other countries should adopt.
The openness, the Brazilian work culture, it's very. I think there's a big openness on people raising their hand and talking. In public, in private, one-on-ones. I think Brazilians have it a little easier on them.
Yeah, that's a nice one. That's a nice one. And to close the quick fire round, one Brazilian book, movie, or series you'd recommend to help people understand our culture.
Book, series, or movie. Um, the one that comes to it's terrible. The one that comes to mind is because I really enjoyed that movie was City of God. You know, I think removing the violence, you can get a little bit of the life on more poor areas in Brazil from the 80s, which is the time I was born and raised, right? City of God, it is a really good movie. A little violent, but if you go beyond the violence, you're gonna see old Rio de Janeiro, and how things got started.
And I would say that it also shows how resourceful people are, regardless of the difficulties, right?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Very good, very good. So thank you so much, Paulo. It was a really
Oh,
cool conversation, especially with all your experience with Silicon Valley, Europe, India, really global professional.
like
And yeah, thank you so much.
like
Very,
many other
very nice.
Brazilians, when you live abroad, you get to meet so many Brazilians in similar paths. It's good to be one representative of such a great nation. Thank you, Joca. Thank you, Fabio. It was really good to be here.
Thank you. And any final words, Fabio, also?
No, I'm just happy to have Paulo here. One of the most international people we've ever met. The It's pretty rare, right, that somebody has all of those continents under their belt: America, Europe, Asia, and it's a privilege. It's very interesting to learn what's common and what's not so common about different cultures and how to navigate that. And we hope we have clarified uh, a few things about that, and that people can learn something about the way that we're seeing these questions or these issues or these uh, opportunities, if we will.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Fabio, for co-hosting again this conversation. And Paulo, if you want to say some final words, also be free.
I'll finish like this, for my Indian colleagues. Thank you, everybody. Really good to be here, and let's keep rocking this small world.
Oh, very nice, very nice. So, to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with more stories, learnings, and reflections from the Brazilian product people around the world.
And yes, see you next time in Product the Brazilian Way, the podcast with an accent.
Awesome.